Once upon a time so long ago the day is now forgotten, there lived a king and a queen, King Frederick and Queen Mary.
In their castle, they had almost everything they could ever want. And by their castle was a magical lake, unlike any other.
The water was so clear and sweet. Each night the moon would sparkle on the lake, illuminating it with its light.
The king and queen only wanted one thing in the whole world: a baby, a princess. Soon, they were blessed with a baby girl, who they named Victoria.
The king and queen sent out invitations all around the kingdom, inviting everyone to the christening of the princess. But there was someone left off their list: the king's evil sister, Citrus.
Citrus was a sorceress and practiced dark magic. When she was angry, her little eyes flashed blue.
When she hated anybody, they shone yellow and green. What they looked like when she loved anybody, I do not know, for I never heard of her loving anybody but herself.
When Citrus learned of the princess and found she had not been invited to the party, she grew angry and jealous.
She sought out to take her revenge. She created an evil spell to place upon baby Victoria.
On the night of the christening, just as the christening water was being sprinkled on the new baby's head, the evil witch turned into place 3 times, waved her magic wand, and chanted her evil spell.
Light of spirit, by my charms, light of body, every part, only weary human arms, only crush thy parents' heart. Don't you agree, Joe? You want that child to be cursed?
And like that, the baby princess rose high into the air, with a giggle so high-pitched that everyone clapped their hands over their ears.
Luckily, the baby's maid, Agnes, kept hold of the baby's swaddling cloth, which held her like a string to a kite.
The princess was cursed. All the weight of her body had disappeared and gravity could not hold her. All she could do was float and laugh and float and laugh.
The king and queen were horribly distraught.
How can she ever be a normal girl? She can't even walk.
You'll feel better with Victoria in your arms. I'll get her down for you. John, bring the steps.
The steps were brought and set upon the dining table, and the king got on top of them. But he could not reach the little princess, who lay like a baby laughter cloud, floating in the air and exploding continuously. Take the tongs, John.
John could reach the baby now, and the princess was handed down by the tongs.
As the princess grew, they soon discovered the worst part of the curse. The princess was not only light in body, but light in her mind.
She had no real feelings or thoughts and went around giggling at everything she heard. She never took anything seriously. This distressed the king and queen.
What's this all about? What are you crying for, my queen?
It's my child. My child.
It's a good thing to be light-hearted, I'm sure.
It's a bad thing to be light-headed.
'Tis a good thing to be light-handed.
'Tis a bad thing to be light-fingered.
'Tis a good thing to be light-footed.
'Tis a bad thing.
In fact, it is a good thing altogether to be light-bodied.
It's a bad thing altogether to be light-minded, and it's a bad thing to be light-haired.
It was at this exact moment that the king and queen realized that they were not alone.
My dear child, you must be aware by this time that you are not exactly like other people.
I've got a nose and 2 eyes, and all the rest. So have you. So has Mama.
Now be serious, my dear. For once.
No, thank you, Mama. I'd rather not.
Would you not like to be able to walk like other people?
No, indeed. I should think not. I can fly. You can only crawl compared to me.
How do you feel, my child?
Quite well, thank you.
I mean, what do you feel like?
Like nothing at all, that I know of.
You must feel something.
I feel like a princess with such a funny papa and such a dear pet of a queen mama.
We're being serious. We're worried about you.
Well, I remember, I have a curious feeling sometimes, as if I were the only person who had any sense in the whole world.
Is there nothing you wish for?
Yes, there is something I wish, more than anything.
What is it, my darling?
Will you promise to let me have it?
First, you have to tell us what it is.
No, first you must promise. Mind I hold you to your promise. It is to be tied to the end of a string, a very long string indeed, and be flown like a kite, over in rose water and hail sugar plums and snow-whipped cream, and
What is to be done?
There is but one thing that we haven't tried. Let's consult the College of Metaphysicians.
And so they brought the brightest minds in all the land, Humdrum and Copycat, two very, very wise philosophers.
I reiterate my former assertion. There's not a fault in the princess, body or soul, only they are wrong put together. Listen to me now, Humdrum, and I will tell you in brief what I think. Don't speak, don't answer me. I won't hear you till I have done. At that decisive moment, when souls seek their appointed ambitions, the eager souls met, struck, rebounded, lost their way, and arrived each at the wrong place. The soul of the princess was one of those, and went far astray. She does not belong by rights to this world at all, but is a northern planet, probably Mercury. Her proclivity to a true sphere destroys all the natural influence which its orb would otherwise possess over her corporal frame. She goes for nothing here. There is no relation between her and this world. She must therefore be taught by the sternest compulsion to take an interest in the earth as the earth. She must study every department of its history, its animal history, its vegetable history, its mineral history, its social history, its moral history, its political history, above all, its scientific... Wait, no, we don't know. Its political history, its scientific history, its literary history, its musical history, its artistical history, above all, its metaphysical history. She must begin with the Chinese dynasty and Emperor Japan. First of all, she must study geology, and especially the history of the distinct races of animals, their natures, their habits, their loves, their hates, their revenge. She must... Hold. It is certainly my turn now. My rooted and insubvertible conviction is that the causes of the anomalies evident in the princess's condition are strictly and solely physical, but that is only tantamount in acknowledging that they exist. Hear my opinion. From some cause or other of no importance to our inquiry, the motion of her heart has been reversed. The remarkable combination of the suction and the air force pump. Wait, I just did air force pump. And the force pump works the wrong way. I mean, in the case of the unfortunate princess, it draws in where it should force out, and forces out where it should draw in. The offices of the auricles and ventricles are subverted. The blood is forced by the veins and returns by the arteries. Consequently, it is running the wrong way through all her corporeal organism, lungs and all. Is it then at all mysterious, seeing that such is the case, that on the particular gravitation as well, she should differ from normal humanity? My proposal for the cure is this. Lobotomize until she's reduced to the last point of safety. Let it be affected, if necessary, in a warm bath. When she is reduced to a state of perfect asphyxia, apply a ligature to the left ankle, drawing it as tight as the bone will bear. Apply at the same moment another of equal tension around the right wrist. By means of plates constructed for the purpose, place the other foot and hand under the receivers of 2 air pumps. Exhaust the receivers. Exhibit a pint of French brandy and await the result, which will presently arrive in the form of grim death. If she should, she would yet die in doing our duty.
They ran many experiments on the princess as the years passed by. They quickly discovered two things.
She held a heavy stone in each hand. She could control her body and touch down to earth, long enough to take a tiny step before floating back up into the air, bouncing back up into the air again.
They also discovered something very strange. A single drop of water would lower the princess ever so slightly.
It was only a matter of time before they decided to bring her to the magical lake. They armed the princess with her heavy stones in each hand and told her to walk towards the water.
The second her foot touched the lake, the stones fell out of the princess's hands and gravity was returned.
Something about her changed completely. Her giggle disappeared, and a sense of calm came over her body.
She continued to walk out further into the water until her body was submerged completely. The king and queen screamed in fear that the princess might drown, but they just saw her gracefully swimming to the top.
The princess loved the lake. Each day she would go swimming and feel its calming effects. She would hum herself the calming tune that played in her mind.
One day, as the princess was swimming in her lake, the sound of her humming swirled away in a fairy wind and drifted through the air, reaching the ears of a prince.
He traveled through the forest following the song until he came to the edge of the magic lake. There he saw the princess floating on the lake, her body still.
But what he saw frightened him. He had never seen someone so still. He thought surely she was drowning. He ran to the water and dove in towards the princess, grabbing her body and pulling her to the shore.
As soon as her foot touched the shore, her body lifted into the air and she shrieked.
What are you doing? Are you insane?
No one had ever succeeded putting her into passion before. When the prince saw her, he said, he thought he must have been bewitched and mistaken a great swan for a lady.
But the princess caught hold of the topmost cone upon a lofty fir. This came off, but she caught in another, and, in fact, stopped herself by gathering cones, dropping them as the stalks gave way.
There he found her, climbing down one of the branches towards the stem. But in the darkness out of the wood, the prince continued in some bewilderment as to what the phenomenon could be. Until, reaching the ground and seeing him standing there, she caught hold of him and said, "What business had you to pull me down out of the water and throw me to the bottom of the air? I never did you any harm."
Pardon me, I did not mean to hurt you.
"I don't believe you have any brains, and that is a worse loss than your wretched gravity. I pity you."
The prince now saw that he had become upon the bewitched princess and had already offended her. But before he could think of what to say next, she burst out angrily, giving a stamp with her foot that would have set her aloft again, but for the hold she had of her arm.
"Put me up directly."
Put you up where?
He had fallen for her in an instant. For her honesty made her more charming than anyone, and as far as he could see, which certainly was not far, she had not a single fault about her, except of course, that she had not any gravity.
No prince, however, will judge a princess by weight. The loveliness of her foot will hardly estimate the depth and impression it could make in the mud.
"In the water! You're impossible."
Come then.
The condition of her dress, increasing her usual difficulty in walking, compelled her to cling to him, and he could hardly persuade himself that he was not in a delightful dream, notwithstanding the torrent of musical abuse with which she overwhelmed him.
The prince being therefore in no hurry, they came across another part of the lake entirely, where the bank was 25 feet high at least. And when they had reached the edge, he turned to her and said, "How am I to put you in?"
"You figured out, you took me out, put me in again." Catching her up in his arms, he sprang with her from the rock. The princess had just time to give one delighted shriek of laughter before the water closed over them.
When they came to the surface, she found that for a moment she couldn't even laugh, for she had gone down with such a rush that it was with difficulty that she recovered her breath. The instant they reached the surface,
How do you like falling in?
Is that what you call falling in? That seemed to me like going up. How do you like falling in?
Beyond everything, for I have fallen with the only perfect creature I ever saw.
No more of that. I'm tired of it. And the prince learned an important lesson by objectifying a crush by their looks.
I'm sorry. What I should have said is, you make me laugh, and I'm having a lot of fun swimming here with you.
Well, at all events, as we have fallen in together, let us have a swim.
And away they went, swimming and diving and floating, until at last they heard cries along the shore, and saw lights glancing in all directions. It was now quite late, and there's no moon.
I must go home. I think I'm sorry about it, because I've had fun too.
Do you know how late it is? Where have you been?
It's so late.
When the evil witch heard word that the princess was happy, she concocted her evil plan.
I will soon set all right. The king and the people shall die of thirst. Their brains shall boil and frizzle in their skulls before I shall get my revenge. Right, Jim?
She gathered a bit of seaweed and ash in her hand and said the magic spell. And I don't dare repeat the words to use today. She waved her hand over the ingredients.
And from the ashes grew the white snake of darkness. Around the evil witch it slithered, wrapping itself around her shoulders.
With the snake coiled around her, she opened her cellar door and slowly descended down the creaking steps into the dark cavern below. She traveled through the depths, going through doors and going through caverns, until she passed through 100 doors.
Above her head was the bottom of the lake, a giant boulder-like plug keeping the water filled above. The white snake of darkness slithered towards the roof of the cavern, unhinged its giant jaw, latching on, and began to suck.
Yes, my beauty, drain it dry.
Its body twitched and squirmed and suddenly dropped to the ground, turning once again into a piece of seaweed. The evil witch looked up and saw a single drop beginning to drip from the great boulder above.
She smiled and began her long walk back through the doors to her house.
The next day, the princess gasped. The lake looked smaller. The prince tried to comfort her, but he too saw the difference.
Each day, the lake grew smaller, and the princess swam less and less. One day, they woke to find the lake completely dried up.
The king sent the brightest minds to the empty lake on top of the giant boulder, and they saw these words. Death alone from death can save. Love's death, and so is brave. Love can fill the deepest grave. Love lives on beneath the wave.
They knew what must be done.
The body of a human being who will only give themselves in love was the only thing that could stop her up the lake and restore its magic waters.
Upon hearing this, the prince knew what must be done. He went to the king and begged him to allow him to make the sacrifice for the light princess.
He wanted her to have her waters and a chance at calm. When the princess heard that the prince was going to sacrifice himself, she felt nothing.
For nothing was all she could feel because of the curse from the witch. But the king and queen had a plan in mind. They knew that once the princess could see how much the prince loved her, she might begin to feel.
They sent the princess to the lake with some food for the prince. There she found him lying on top of the boulder.
Presently, a little wave flowed over the stone and wetted one of the prince's knees, but he did not mind it much. He began to sing. and the song he sang was this.
Like a ray of sun beneath the waves, shining on the shadows deep. Broken beams, waking dreams, with ancient secrets sleeps. So to me, are you a ray of sun, shining on my darkest nights? I see death in your soul, your darkness is your light.
As the water slowly rose toward his face, the princess saw him, that he was dying. At that moment, something very strange happened.
She began to cry, something she had never done before. When the first tear fell from her eye, the curse the witch had placed upon her was broken forever.
A rain came on, such had never been seen in that country. The sun shone all the time, and the great drops, which fell straight to the earth, shone likewise.
The palace was the heart of a rainbow. It was a rain of rubies and sapphires and emeralds and topaz. The turrets poured down from the mountains like molten gold. And if it not been for its subterraneous outlet, the lake would have been overflowed and inundated the country.
The lake never sank again. Over time, it wore the roof of the cavern quite through, and it was twice as deep as before.
Water had undermined the witch's house. It had fallen in the night, burying her in its ruins, where no one dared to venture. She still lies there to this day.
As for the princess, her gravity was restored in her body and in her mind. She told her loved ones that she no longer needed the lake. She had found the magic within herself. Is this what you used to make such a big deal about? I was much more comfortable without it.
No, that's not it. This is it. This is gravity.
And she smiled the sweetest, loveliest smile in the prince's face.
And they all lived happily ever after for the rest of their days.